Good evening from Yammy BTV. Wishing you all well today. Sending loads of love as usual. The video I'm coming up with tonight involves probably the biggest crime that you can get convicted of, or the biggest crime that you can ever be involved in, is one of murder. Now, you can imagine over a 40 odd years stay in Her Majesty's pleasure or institutions of one kind or another, I've read a lot of cases involving murders, and some who I've got really close to and often thought, how is it possible at their characters and the way they are that they could plead guilty and be convicted? No, these ones I'm talking about in particular, pleading guilty to murders of horrific and rather heinous, gruesome, terrifying, absolutely over the top. And I think to myself, bloody hell, I wouldn't have expected that from you. Also, I've looked at cases where you've had one-on-one combat, where you've got a knife, I've got a knife, you pull out your knife, I pull out mine, and one of you dies from one stab wound. I often say to myself, if you haven't got the knife, then you won't be able to do the stabbing. But then if you haven't got the knife on that night and the other person has, that means you don't get to put up no fight whatsoever. You're handing over your life unarmed to a man who's hell-bent on killing you. So the wrongs, the rights of it all, do I make some of it right sometimes? Do I make some of it wrong? Whatever. The course of action taken when it comes to murder and loss of life. Sometimes I think I could bend a little bit, if I'm being perfectly honest, and say that I thought that one could have been justified. It doesn't happen to me a lot, especially the way that I am now. But thinking back, I would say at certain times I've almost agreed that that was your only way out, because unless you're prepared to just lose your life without putting up a fight. We also have men that have committed murder and are waiting to go on trial, and a body hasn't been found. But looking at them, I'm thinking, I can't see you doing it. But then you say a few things to me that make me feel like you definitely did. And I'll explain why in a minute. And then we also get round to the gang murders, where I've met some sorry figures where they've been involved in murders or murder, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-handed, one of you pulls the trigger and a person dies, and all of you have to serve the same sentence. And a couple of those I met along the way for those crimes, where they weren't the one that pulls the trigger. I lie there on my bed and I say, I just can't see you doing it on your own. It doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means that my instinct and my intuition, my wisdom, my insight into looking at things and people in its totality, not just jumping on the bandwagon, wholeheartedly giving my absolute truth about those cases. And I'll start with, sorry, 1 second. I hate when I have to always pick up the water. I'll start with one, right? Geezer, well-known face from North London, right? Goes on a burglary. Bumps into a geezer, gets inside information, apparently, allegedly, right? I'm only going by what I read and, their own take on stuff. And they're burgling a man that they hear is a homosexual or a child abuser. of some kind, right? So for that person who's burgling the house, that kind of thing holds special meaning. Like it reminds them of things that have happened to them, and you know, it comes out when you least expect it, with what they've been through, gruesomely, horrifically, heinously, almost unbelievably shocking, because I couldn't picture myself doing what they did, because these ones are definitely guilties, and out of their own mouths as well. But on one of those, in that house, you chop off the genitals, you chop up the body, you cut it to pieces, you do everything you can. It looks like a frenzied attack of absolute hatred, when really, apparently, you was only going there for a bit of money. But on information received, the person that's living there has meant to have these traits that remind people like me and you that they still exist, and we will always somehow hate them for what they are. And that person I spent a lot of time with, really liked him. Funny geezer, respected by loads and loads of people. I think he ended up in Grendon at some stage to address, you know, that kind of behaviour. And I never ever asked him about it, because it's very, very private, and it's not something he ever talks about. But obviously when I read the paperwork, I was, you know, my way of thinking about him, we're fair to say, changed. But did I hate him for it? Did I blame him for it? Do I know what goes on inside of him, the abuse he suffered as a boy, or things that, you know, that have hurted him for a lifetime, have come out in those split seconds, and probably, realistically, gone way over the top. Another geezer from Liverpool, well known, done a life sentence, read his paperwork too, spent 20 odd years behind the door, ended up in Grendon as well. Similar kind of thing. Got abused when he was younger, quite freely. Me and him had chats about this kind of stuff, and he opened up to me, I opened up to him, and you know, we had a little hug and that kind of stuff. But on reading his murder conviction that he pleaded guilty for, and telling me that really he holds no remorse for what he did, for some reason. So whatever took place for him when he was younger led him to react during that crime to a very, very, very extremely horrendous, extreme standard, if you like. I mean, you could have robbed him, you could have violated him, you know, in that life, if you get what I mean, taken his money. But to cut off and do that kind of stuff, you have to have a lot of hatred towards people allegedly similar to those that harmed you when you was younger. All right, that's the best way to put it. Some of these names are well known. Some of you probably know what I'm talking about already, if you've lived that life and you've heard of such cases, because they are very, very rare as well. Another one, right? Now, I had mixed feelings, like the fella. Apparently, right, he was away doing a prison sentence. His missus got caught cheating on him, right? Excuse me again, bloody hell. His missus got caught, banged to rights, cheating on him. He swore to himself when he got out he was going to take revenge. Now, he waited 18 months to go on trial. He had a retrial. No body was ever found or anything like that. So, you know, from feedback from him at first, I was thinking, was it, wasn't it? With the background that he's given me with the cheating stuff, I lie there at night and I think, quite possible. And then one day I'm leaning over the railings and we're talking, and he says to me, well, she won't be cheating no more, will she? If that was you and that was me, I knew you could, what I'm actually saying is, you know what I would feel if somebody said that to me. That would be enough for me to say that what you're telling me is she deserved what she got. But it doesn't mean that he done it, does it? It could mean that something bad's happened to her and he doesn't really care because she cheated on him. But eventually, after a couple of trials or so, he got found guilty and the body has never, ever been found. But these are the extremes of human nature when if you haven't got the control, or you lose all self-control, or you're hurt so bad that you can't move on from what's happened with your past or present, you know, you can go to the absolute extremes to exercise that hurt that you went through. And the only way that you know by way of payback would be to release it in that violent way. The other two ones that I thought about recently as well, I'm giving you a part one of these because I've got loads and loads and loads where I've kind of been shocked and not shocked, and at the same time agreed, like I said. The one-on-one ones where two men at war, one's got a knife, he's got a knife, you've got beef going back God knows how long, and you're going to bump into each other down a local pub. The chances are high you're going to meet him, and you want to be ready when you meet him because you know he's looking for you and he knows you're looking for him. He draws out his knife, you draw out yours, you end up killing him. So you're the one that ends up doing the life sentence because of that. What do we mean by it all though? Do we feel that, is it justified that it's me or him? You know, I've made videos on revenge, and, you know, at the time, if you don't fight back or you just let sleeping dogs lie and let him have his wicked way with you so he can take the absolute mick out of you or even take your life without you putting up a fight, is it right? Do you see what I mean? But that person, one of them, spent over 20 years away. He's out now and doing really well. But I fall into judgment on that kind of thing. Not now, because I'm a straight goer, because I will not promote any violence. But at the time, I was thinking, you could only do with what was in front of you. Because if someone draws their knife out on you and you got yours, you're carrying yours, so you're prepared to use it. He's carrying his, so he's prepared to use it. If you haven't got it, you don't stand a chance. If he hasn't got it, he doesn't stand a chance. So it's one of those things, it looks like that it could never have ever been pieced unless you go at each other and kill each other. So back then, I'll sit on the scales now, you know, would I turn the other cheek kind of thing? I think that I would, to be honest. I think I wouldn't meet, I just don't think the same way now anyway with that kind of stuff, because all them beefs that I believe that I had or still have, I don't look at the same way because I've seen where it can lead to. And I know by getting a life sentence, you're still going to suffer every single day of it, no matter if you think that whether it was me or him or not. And if he's dead, they say dead man tells no tales. I met another one like that where it was knife against knife, and there's only other two possible outcomes, either you die or he die. So same kind of thing. Not saying obviously that I am a master at psychology with a degree, like I said earlier, or I like to think that I've got good instincts when it comes to certain things. When I saw that dirty dog Huntley, I was in Whitemore sitting in the front row with 4 others when the school caretaker was talking about the Soho murders, and he come on to do an interview, and I was looking at him, and it passed through my mind straight away that something about this geezer just wasn't right. It turns out that that instinct that I had was right, and he was the murderer. To make it even worse on top of that, call her silly, call her whatever, call her manipulated, call her in love, call her, stupid, call her whatever way you want, right? But as soon as she spoke, I knew she was lying, right? Big question you asked me. No, we'll get round to the biggest one. That's also been asked of me since I've had this channel as well. And we're talking about a poor little young, beautiful, little lovely girl got disappeared off the face of the earth one night in another country, and nothing's ever been found, and they've had untold inquiries, spent bundles of money, and they still haven't found a reasonable answer to tell us all. When it first came out, when they were saying what they were saying about family members, I wasn't in agreement at all. I just didn't believe that they would. They didn't look like the kind of people. That's without me, not knowing them, of course. But I didn't feel it, if you get what I mean. Since I've been out, I've been hearing all sorts of different things surrounding the case, where I almost got convinced to go along that they could have played a part in some way. But whether you hate me for it, whether you don't mind, but I still haven't changed my mind on that one. I don't believe they had nothing to do with it. I don't know what some of you lot might know more than me, but as far as I'm concerned, it is still only hearsay, not factual that they're involved in this or they knew this person that was involved in that. As far as I'm concerned, I stick by what I thought in the beginning, that it wasn't. The other day in the comments, not going to say the name because I don't want to get into any trouble, you mentioned a geezer called Jenkins, right? You mentioned a geezer called Jenkins, right? And one of you asked me, sadly, there was a lovely daughter or stepdaughter or some kind of daughter, family member, got found murdered on a doorstep of the family home while no one was there. Up to now, they still can't find anything or anybody to put to such a hurtful, sad murder. That apparently a member of the family has been arrested and probably been on trial and may have won the case. And I'm not saying who this person is or whatever, I'm not getting into it. And you asked me, Uncle Yammy, what do you think about this geezer? And I've got to say, rather than the one that I just spoke about beforehand, I looked at him and I thought it was. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, because I'm not going to go into it. But there's just something sometimes that when we get feelings about things, where something touches us deeply, when you look into the faces of people that are explaining themselves and giving their events or their movements that day, and their characters, and well, I know you can't hang and slaughter and quarter a person just because you might not like their character, but something tells me that that one was not quite right either. So the answer to your question, young man, is that I do believe something fishy happened there. So I've got a part 2 and a part 3 But I just thought I'd pop up. I can't believe how my long one can talk for sometimes without trying to trip over what I'm trying to talk about. But I've got a lot of cases that have shocked me over the years, because it's really, there's loads of us that are testament, that can testify that on meeting what you read in the newspapers about the murders and people that have been convicted of them or allegedly been convicted of them, and you meet them and you live on the landing with them for years and years and years, and you think, absolutely no way. I mean, no one can ever know, can they? But we can, we do, as human beings, have feelings, and we do feel, without, if we got sensible heads, we know if we're being far-fetched, most of us. But just over the years, I've seen so much where I've been surprised and then also not surprised at all, because the presence of evil is very real in some of those that have got away and some of them that haven't. And to distinguish between looking at one side of murderers with what I've explained in the first half, to the ones in between, to the ones now, the characters on all different sides. Through my experiences, when I put it together, I can't say, I think I can say, without being 100% right, none of us was ever there, but on some, I feel like I'm absolutely sure sometimes that they're telling a bag of lies. But wishing you a good day, sending loads of love, and hope to see you very, very soon.